The human race is undergoing a spiritual awakening. All across the planet, people are beginning to realize that a spiritual essence emanates all of material creation. People are realizing their connection to one another, their connection to their environment, and even their connection to the Creator. The people who know what is happening and can see the signs are beginning to see them everywhere. I personally began my journey of spiritual awakening in the year of 2012. First, I went through a hard loss and I was grieving. Then I decided that it might help my mental and emotional health a bit to meditate every day. Well, not only did it indeed help, but through daily meditation, I began to experience myself as connected to and one with a higher power. I felt my conscious presence both within my body and surrounding my body simultaneously. I began to realize, as many are, that I'm truly an infinite, eternal, and deathless being. You see, through suffering, who I really am, awakened. After I started having experiences of being one with a higher power, I started to scour the World Wide Web to see if there were others like me, others whose experiences challenged the traditional notion that who and what we are is confined to just our skin. What I discovered is that there were several others who already knew about what I was experiencing. They were experiencing awakenings themselves. We would meet in online forums to discuss spiritual experiences and all things metaphysical, and to share in the changes that were happening to us. The groups that I was a part of eventually grew from thousands to tens of thousands to millions. This was eye-opening. It caused me to question just how vast this awakening that I was a part of was becoming. I started to notice more signs of the awakening taking place. In 2015, Oprah Winfrey and spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle, who literally writes guides on spiritual enlightenment, teamed up to create a 10-part series on spiritual living. By the third episode, there were over 11 million people tuning in to watch Mr. Tolle and Oprah discuss these topics. In 2018, the Pew Research Center reported that over 25% of Americans now view themselves as being spiritual, but not necessarily religious. There is a movement away from traditional religion and into spiritual practice. As yoga has swept across the United States and much of the world, there are now almost 35,000 yoga studios that have popped up in the US alone. Millions of the participants of yoga have begun immersing themselves in the spiritual and transcendent aspects of the practice. We are going through what I would call a spiritual renaissance, a spiritual reawakening, the likes of which the modern world has never seen before. What is going on is truly as beautiful as it is astounding. The reason that the spiritual renaissance is not talked about more in the mainstream media, even though it pertains to a very large subset of the population, is because it truly stands to threaten the overall system that is in place, which people are forced into from birth. A system that is often based on fear, domination of the natural environment, disregard for animal and human life, racism, and overall separation. You see, a spiritual awakening often causes people to wake up to the fact that we are all deeply connected, and the health and well-being of each of us affects the health and well-being of all of us. We are not separate from the environment that surrounds us, but one with it, as well as being dependent upon it. When the heart opens during a spiritual awakening, it is made clear that no one person is greater or less than any other. For in the eyes of our Creator, we are all made perfect, and all of life is sacred. Millions worldwide are awakening to this truth at this point. But as music artist Gil Scott-Heron said in the 1970s, the revolution will not be televised. One likely sign of the change in human spiritual awareness that is taking place are the marches for human justice that have occurred so far in the year 2020. Triggered by the murder of George Floyd, as well as other Black citizens, millions of people worldwide have taken to the streets to protest the mistreatment and inhumane actions towards black individuals by unfair justice systems. Whereas these protests were very black versus white in the United States during the 1960s, people from all backgrounds, colors, and creeds now shout out against racism and injustice. As humanity more and more realizes its fundamental oneness, people very naturally grow in love and compassion for their brothers and their sisters. Along with that, it won't be surprising to soon see more respect for the environment, for individual uniqueness, and for a growing integration of spiritual truths into national policies. As the spiritual awakening continues to pick up momentum in the world, more and more souls will feel the call to awaken. I truly believe that as the human awakening intensifies, we are likely to see an end to war, a movement to a cleaner environment, and a deeper honoring for all of life.
Fundamental changes in society are sometimes labeled impractical or contrary to human nature, as if nuclear war were practical, or as if there were only one human nature. But fundamental changes can clearly be made. We're surrounded by them. In the last 2 centuries, abject slavery, which was with us for thousands of years, has almost entirely been eliminated in a stirring worldwide revolution. Women, systematically mistreated for millennia, are gradually gaining the political and economic power traditionally denied to them. And some wars of aggression have recently been stopped or curtailed because of a revulsion felt by the people in the aggressor nations. The old appeals to racial, sexual, and religious chauvinism and to rabid nationalist fervor are beginning not to work. A new consciousness is developing which sees the earth as a single organism and recognizes that an organism at war with itself is doomed. We are one planet.